Hi, my name is Graeme. I'm originally from northeast Scotland and I've been living in Cuernavaca for 3 years. So we chose to live in Mexico primarily because I was offered a job here. I work for a UK company and I'm a project manager in IT for them across their Latin American region. However, my relationship with Mexico started 20 years ago when I first came as a teacher. And after 6 months in Mexico City, I went to a place called Mamarumbas to learn to salsa dance. And the person that helped teach me to salsa dance is now my wife. So after the relationship with her, getting married, we then left Mexico for a few years, lived in other places such as Korea, Germany, Qatar, and Spain. And we came back in 2018 and we've been back now for 6 years. We chose Cuernavaca because as the pandemic hit, we were living in Mexico City and it was just one of those times with something of an event of that scale and significance that we were thinking about what we wanted to do, where we wanted to be, and we decided we wanted to be somewhere that was a little bit quieter, offered a little bit higher quality of life in terms of being able to get out in nature and explore the country. And so we decided to make the switch to Cuernavaca and we chose to buy a house here. I think there's a few unique things about living in Cuernavaca. The first thing is that the foreigners that live here can be here for basically any length of time from 3 months to permanent and everything in between. It's a big place for Spanish language schools. So there tends to be a lot of people from overseas that are here for a period of months to study. But also there are people that retire here if they have a reason to, such as if they already have family in the area. I would say that's unique in the sense that in terms of building relationships with other foreigners in Cuernavaca, it does tend to be that your friends move on or your friends move to different locations, which gives you great holiday options, but also means that you're changing your friendship groups on a regular basis. I would also say in terms of the pros and cons of Cuernavaca, Cuernavaca has around 3 different climates within the city. In the north, it's cooler. In the south, it's warmer. So even on a very warm day, you're able to go to the north of the city and cool down a bit. You've also got lots of nature around. We've got lots of parks, national parks, lagoons, forests. There's lots of different places to explore. In terms of the negatives of Cuernavaca, Cuernavaca is quite high on the list in Mexico in terms of crime. It's not something that we faced, primarily because the dog here keeps us very safe and his bark is quite scary, but also because we've never seen or experienced it. We know it happens and Mexico has a reputation for it, but in the years I've been here, whether it's driving from here to Merida or it's going to Guadalajara or it's around Cuernavaca or Mexico City, I've never experienced that side of Mexico. So yes, we know it exists, but it's not something we are too worried about at all. We knew we were ready to buy a house during the pandemic. We found that like everybody else, everyone was thinking about their life, thinking about what they wanted to do. A lot of people were looking at remote work, and in my case, I had the opportunity to work from home. And so given that I wasn't tied to the office anymore, we wanted to live somewhere that gave us a little bit more freedom and flexibility. So we knew then that we wanted to come to Cuernavaca. We spent quite a long time looking for the house that we wanted to buy. I think we looked at maybe 50 properties before we settled on the one that we bought. And we looked in all sorts of different parts of the city before settling on Burgos. So yeah, it was really during the pandemic that we wanted something different. The house buying process here was a little bit complex purely because of the length of time we took to choose a house, and also because at the time we chose to buy a house, I still had residente temporal. And ordinarily, it's very difficult to get credit for a house or a credit card or any type of support financially on residente temporal, but I was able to do it through one bank that was willing to do it so long as I had a period of time with a credit card and showed that I could be reliable with it. So we had a period of 6 months where I had to build up my credit history. We were very lucky. We found a local agent here who was really fantastic, and I know that on Facebook, I've had a couple of people who are looking at Cuernavaca ask if they know an agent, who have then gone to him and found him as good as we found him. There are a number of taxes that you have to pay on a house in Mexico, including when you purchase the house, there is a fee to pay called predial, which in our case was around 11,000 pesos. The taxes and costs in total are, depending on the agent and the notary, around 7 to 9% of the value of the property. In our case, ours was right in the middle, and it was around about 8% of the value of the house for our fee, which was around 345,000 pesos. Also in Cuernavaca, we don't have the restrictions where, living by the coast, you have to put the house in a trust. Actually, putting the house in a trust is really, this amounts to the same thing. It's just the trust holds the deeds. In my case, I didn't need to form a trust to buy the house, but I did need to get the Secretaría de Relaciones Exteriores, SRE, in Mexico City to approve the purchase. So they had to check my tax records, they had to check my financial status and approve it as a foreigner to purchase. So in this neighborhood, Burgos Bugambillas, there is a lot of variation in house price and house type, from really large kind of hacienda type houses down to smaller houses in larger communities. The price range is between roughly 2.8 million pesos to anything to 15 million and above for, you know, a 8-9 bedroom casa sola in one of the wealthier parts of the neighborhood. In this section of Burgos, the house prices are between, today, they're between around 2.8 and 5 million pesos. We chose Burgos Bugambillas partly because my sister-in-law already had a weekend home here, so we were familiar with the place. We knew where it was compared to other facilities and, you know, shopping and other aspects of life in Cuernavaca. In terms of what makes it unique or an interesting place to live, I would say that there is quite a good sense of community here. The administration of the larger community and our own within our area is very, very proactive. You see that the things like the roads get painted, there's work done with planting in the streets. It's made to look nice. They do very good jobs in terms of working with gas companies and water companies. There's security both to get into the community and inside our community of houses where we live. And also because of the climate, it's a really nice place to live, beautiful views, and also in our case, we have a pool and nice facilities and good neighbors. We have a lot of social events with our neighbors, games nights. We even painted some of the pool and the palapa area next to our pool together as a community, as an event. So it's a very nice, sociable, happy community. We mainly travel by car. There is a microbus service that it doesn't come in directly to the neighborhood, but it's very close to it, that can take you to other parts of Cuernavaca. We would take taxis and other types of transport under certain circumstances. So for example, if I needed to go to the airport for work, I would get a taxi to the bus station. The prices here from Burgos into Cuernavaca, say to the bus station or Centro, is around about 150 pesos. We are a reasonable distance from the center of the city. So as a result, the prices may sound a little bit higher than they may be in other parts of Mexico. You're looking at a 40-minute ride to the center of Cuernavaca from here. However, most days, if we're going to the supermarket or we're going to play tennis at the club or wherever we're going and what we're doing, we drive. When we fly, we tend to fly from Mexico City. Cuernavaca does have an airport, but it doesn't anymore really have too many flights to different destinations. So we fly, when for example, we've flown to Cancun from Mexico City, Guadalajara, we've flown to Puerto Vallarta, and also taken long distance buses. For fun, our fun revolves around our two rescue dogs, Benny and Eva. So we like to take them out for walks. We like to take them to the eco parks and some of the other dog walking spots in and around Cuernavaca. Aside from that, very close to here is Club Burgos, and there we have paddle tennis, pickleball, tennis, football rapido. There's a swimming pool, there's a gym, there's a spa with massage, which I've done once or twice as well. And aside from that, we like to visit and travel around the area. So we've been to places like Parque Mexico, which is just outside Cuernavaca, Tasco, which is just inside Guerrero, Tepoztlan, which is closer to Mexico City, and also to some of the Pueblo Mágicos in Puebla State, such as Atlisco and Aculco. So for us, cost of living in Cuernavaca, if we include living here, which is our mortgage, and we have some insurance, home insurance with that, and also there is a maintenance fee for the community, which covers our garbage, gardener, swimming pool, and also gardening in our private garden, such as mowing the grass. In total, you're looking at between 25 and 35,000 pesos for all of that. Next, for shopping, we're around 2,500 pesos every 2 weeks or so for our shopping. Partly that is slightly different for us because as I'm working here, I have something called Vales, which is a Mexican government program that takes part of your salary and adds it to a card which you can use to buy everyday goods and services. So that slightly changes our costs because in a way it's subsidized through that. But in general, for supermarket, it's around 2,500 pesos every couple of weeks. Our utilities, we do have air conditioning in my office to cool the computers and our bedroom as well. And we run the air conditioning, one of the air conditioning units during the day and the other one fairly regularly at night. And for that, you're looking at between 1,500 and 2,500 pesos a month for electricity. For the pets, we use a company called Petco for the vet. Vets' bills here are incredibly reasonable. We're normally around 300 to 400 pesos to see a vet. Depending on the treatment, anything from 200 to 2,000 pesos, depending on whether it's an injection or other kind of cost. We also have Sky TV and things like that. Sky TV is around 1,000 pesos a month. Other bills that we have, we like to eat out once or twice a week. We have a couple of restaurants that we really like, and they are around 600 pesos for the two of us to eat out as well. And if we were getting takeout food, it would probably be sushi, and that's around 800 pesos. So the differences between Mexico and Scotland, the first one is in Mexico, there is a mysterious yellow ball in the sky that appears every day and makes Cuernavaca very hot. I think it's called the sun. We don't really get it in Scotland, so I'm not sure exactly how you call it. That's one of the big differences, is that life is outdoors here. In Cuernavaca, the city is known as La Ciudad de la Eterna Primavera, which is the city of the eternal spring. And as the name suggests, the weather here is very good. It's usually between 24 degrees and 35 degrees daily all year. So the big thing that's different is in Scotland, you would live a lot of your life indoors day to day, as well as go out in nature, whereas in Mexico, you live most of your life outside. The second main difference between Mexico and Scotland is in Scotland, where I'm from, is a very small town, around 5,000 people, and it's kind of normal really to live in a small rural place and only go to a city or a main town when you need something, when you're shopping or something like that. Whereas here, you are more likely to live in an urban location. This is especially the case with Mexico City and Cuernavaca, rather than live outside it and go in. So that's one of the big differences, is that the quality of life in Mexico is better if you live in an urban center, whereas in Scotland, it's exactly the opposite. The third difference is Mexico is probably, for me, the top destination in the world for food. Also for the arts as well. It's culinary nirvana as far as I'm concerned. Everything here, whether it's the typical Mexican food you might know overseas like tacos, all the way through to things that you would get locally here like chile relleno, for example, that I eat quite a lot, is absolutely amazing, delicious. It's the variety, the color, the taste is phenomenal. And honestly, I don't miss food in Scotland or food from overseas, because Mexico is just so good. The variety here is just on another planet. So that is definitely a difference that I recognize and see. For vacations, we have a mix of places that we go. For example, we were on a trip to Merida at Christmas, and that was driving. And that was my first experience of long distance driving in Mexico, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, seeing the landscapes changing. You had the mountains here, the volcano with Popo, and then you go down the mountains and you're into a completely different landscape. And then you've got the beaches and the shores of the Gulf Coast, and then into Yucatan with the forest and the cenotes as well. It's just such a fantastic variation of landscape. My favorite place in all of Mexico is probably Oaxaca, and specifically Monte Alban. As a Mayan city, it's absolutely beautiful and stunning because it's on mountaintops. For healthcare, I have private medical insurance with MetLife through my job, which includes my family. We also have dental care through my employer as well. In terms of costs of healthcare here, it's a difficult subject for me being from Scotland, because our healthcare is completely free. So a lot of people from the United States and Canada will come here and say, well, the healthcare is quite cheap relative to the United States. In general, people consider that operations and visits to health professionals are less than 20% generally of what they are in the United States. The reason I met my wife is because I was supposed to be going on a trip outside Mexico City the night I met her, but instead fractured my thumb an ice rink playing ice hockey. And I ended up in a hospital to get a bandage for a fractured thumb. And that was around about 1,800 pesos to get the plaster and get fixed up. You can't possibly count the cost of the consequence of then meeting and marrying my wife. But it's a cost that comes from love, so we don't count those costs. Being married to a Mexican woman has a lot of positives, and one of them is her family. I'm very, very lucky with my in-laws. They are really fun. They're really loving and also just a little bit crazy. We had one of my sisters-in-law, one of Marta's older sisters, had her 70th birthday recently, and for that the family organized a 70s night. And when I say organized a 70s night, I mean the clothes, the music, the food, the dance floor, everything was 70s. And some of the clothes and outfits that my family had were really quite amazing. And it's one of the cultural things in Mexico, or one of the things about my family, about events and being together at these kinds of things, that reminds me of Scotland, because in many ways when we have these events we go a little crazy as well. So it's something that brings us all together. Also, when I was brought into the family, I had an initiation from my brothers-in-law. I had to take a chili that was one of the hottest chilies in Mexico, and I had to eat it. I had to not have a drink, and I had to stop myself from having a drink for at least 10 minutes after, and only then would I be accepted as a man into my family. And I'm very pleased to say that growing up in Scotland eating Indian food prepared me very well for that test, which I passed.